word. And first thing I want to share with you is the saying I actually said quite a few times. I want to repeat here. There are no rules in writing that can't be tested if not completely broken. So Lemon, what do you think this saying is telling us? Yeah, feel free. Don't worry about, there's no right or wrong. It's just your understanding. What do you think that means for you?
Maybe that like all the rules in the writing can be like tested.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the rules, the test, writer, if you write anything, you can test the rule. You can just break the rule actually. All right. So in other words, the rules are basically, we have the grammar rules, we have the skills, we have the regularities, we have the patterns, we have the normal way people write. But writing is a creative art. So that's why there's nothing that is right or wrong or exact or precise. It's writing is creative. So that's why we have certain rules that can be most likely used in certain situations, but they can be broken and they are meant to be broken. That's what it is. All right. So now let's start our exercise. The first thing we want to do is we want to do some writing exercise based on some words. All right. So, and then we're going to learn something based on some 55 rules, 55 tools of writing, which we will review. And then we're going to start a new small section. We'll do some writing exercise. So here's the first word I want to have. Lemon, can you read this word, jejun, and its definition? Example, please.
Jejun, uninteresting and intellectually undemanding, dull or lackluster, can also mean lacking in sophistication or insight, lacking proper nourishment, not very fertile. Many of those taking their first music lesson have jejun dreams of fame, fortune, and standing room-only gigs.
Have you ever seen this word, ever used it?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. All right. I'm glad you didn't know, because we don't want to just give you some words you guys all know, then it's too simple. We want to have some challenge here. Jejun, that sounds kind of crazy. The pronunciation is not normal, as we see, not so many words pronounced this way. But all right, it's very interesting because it means uninteresting, intellectually undemanding. Right? The example tells us many of those taking their first music lessons have jejun dream of fame, fortune, and standing room only gigs. All right, so it means they have very uninteresting, intellectual undemanding. In other words, it's mundane. It's not something creative, not something super, not something creative, not something unique. All right, so fame, fortune, these are just ordinary dreams. Everybody do that. There's no creative. So now let's do an exercise. I want you to write a paragraph of about 5 to 6 sentences using this word jejun. I want you to be creative the best way you can. We're going to give you 7 minutes of writing. It doesn't have to be exactly 5 to 6 sentences. If you think I can write 8 sentences, or I can write only 3 to 4 sentences, but very beautiful, very creative, very unique, fine. All right, do your way you like. Now let's get started. 7 minutes. All right, then after time's called, we will not give more time. If you're not finished, listen to other people's writing, discussion, and editing. Then next time, next exercise, try to finish on time. 7 minutes now. Go ahead. Write in the chat and submit in the chat. All right. So, Lamont, since you're new here, do you know how to submit in the chat on Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Other student, if you don't know, just raise your hand. Otherwise, let's get started. Actually, we have run out of time. So everybody please submit whatever you have finished, partially done, not done. All right, if you didn't do anything, of course you can submit anything. If you only ever finished one sentence or two, submit it. So we can have a discussion about it, then we're gonna move forward. We have some other interesting things to learn and to discuss. Go ahead, everybody. Submit your writing. I don't think I need to check one after another. How about Annabelle? Please, can you submit it? All right, I see one. I see George. All right, everybody else, please follow suit. Oh, sorry, that's not what I mean. Actually, that's just, we don't need to do the vote. Anyway, let's just move on. Okay, let's take a look at the first one by George. And everybody, I want to remind you, if your essay is being discussed, please unmute yourself automatically. You don't have to wait. All right, so just unmute yourself so we can have a discussion. The lecture on ancient Roman architecture was really boring and jejune. All right, yeah, that's a very natural usage of this word because it's boring. It's not interesting. That's why you can say it's jejune, no problem. So that's why I'm gonna mark it as yellow colors, which means it's used correctly. And it didn't capture anyone's interest. Even though Roman history is so interesting, the presentation was super shallow and lacked important detail. All right, so I like this thing about reason. All right, so the reasoning part, right, is using natural logic. All right, why we don't like it? Why it's boring? Because super shallow, it lacked important details. Obviously, that's what we need. But of course, if you really know about, the Roman architecture, you can give some specific detail about specific architecture, specific, building specific thing or designer is better. But of course, you may not know exactly, but that's okay enough for our level of writing, and especially considering the time so limited. The speaker style, voice, and simple explanations made everything seem even more jejune. All right, so you can repeat, all right, even if you can use other words, or you can, for example, even more stale or something similar but different word, but that's okay because it's a little far away from the first one. That's okay, it's not too big a deal. And also, instead of simple as explanation, we can use another word. George, can you unmute yourself to make sure we can have an oral discussion? Instead of using simple is normally neutral, but if you want to have, obviously your comment is kind of negative. So what other words can you think of very similar to simple, but it's having negative comments, negative tone? George?
Yeah.
So what other words similar to simple, but it's more negative? Instead of simple, what can we use to replace it? Yeah, like I said, please unmute yourself because we're discussing your writing. I don't want you to, because every time I try to, unmute you, we're spending at least 5, 6 seconds, like ended up that could be, a few minutes, altogether. All right, so we can use sin something similar. Simplicity. Simplicis. All right. Simplicity. All right. Sorry. All right, simplicity. Or I would say simplified. Simplified is a little more central, neutral, but sometimes you can also be fine. Explanation. And that way we can actually show the writing is not just simple in terms of fact, its format, but actually its meaning, its logic, its steps is kind of unsupported by fact, by knowledge, by skill, by all those kind of in-depth creation. All right, so that's why we want to use simplistic or simplified explanation instead of simple. All right, George. Hello, George. Can you just unmute yourself? And we want to make sure you are kept unmuted so we can have a discussion ongoing. All right.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So, made everything seem even more jejune. People who came expecting an exciting and informative talk found it hard to stay awake. All right, yeah, that's a very interesting, language. All right, so they stay up. All right, so they hard to stay awake. Hard to stay awake. Sorry. The hard to stay awake part is almost funny and hilarious. Sorry, sorry. Almost funny and hilarious, right? So that is making the writing more engaging and attractive for the readers. Right? So everybody should learn that. All right, so you have, all right, George, I have repeated it a couple of times. Do not mute yourself. All right, so the jejune this time, if you use 2 times, okay, because the word sounds new, but use it 3rd times a little bit too much. All right, we should change to a different words that's similar to jejune, which I suggested one word. I'm not sure if you remember what I said. We can use stale, right? Sorry, let's just rewrite the word stale. Do you know the meaning of stale?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you explain explain to her classmates what is style in terms of writing style and art?
Not interesting, not really new.
Yeah, so actually stale's word comes from food. When your food, putting, for example, the bread, you put it in the fridge for a couple of days, which actually bread doesn't normally need to be put in the fridge, but some people like to do that. But if you put it in the fridge for a couple of days, it would fine. When it come out, you want to eat it, you will feel the taste is so dry, so lackluster, right? So, and also even have a kind of close to mild type of taste, right? So that's why we can call that stale. No flavor, no taste, or at least it's not very attractive. It's called stale. So extended meaning for this word is for writing or the content which is very dry, nothing interesting, nothing attractive. So the stale content left everyone feeling disappointed, wishing for a more in-depth look at Roman architecture. Yeah, that's very good. All right, so it's basically the structure is fine, the relationship is very natural, the flow of thinking quite logistically, logically correct. Yeah, but some of the minor issues like the correct usage of the word, and also not to repeat the word too much. All right, you should probably pay more attention. All right, George, good job. Any questions?
No question.
All right, now let's move on to the next one by Lemon. All right, actually, Lemon wrote a second. It's not 5 to 4 to 6 sentences, only 3, only 2 actually. But that's okay. It's better than you're not finished, because remember when I called time, actually only 2 of you finished. All right, so or almost close to the time when time is called. Right, but so that's why I want you guys to make sure you have to submit everything on time. Just like in the exam, if you don't submit your writing on time, probably will lose the opportunity to get even scored. Right, so that's something very, very important. So Lamont, can you unmute yourself? All right. My sister often makes up stories of imaginary characters from her storybooks and TV show. That's very nice. And we can almost think of this something related to interest or uninterest or boring or creative, that type of thing. I think this is rather Jejun and childish for her to do this. Don't use I think. I think is almost a taboo for a very persuasive writing, especially for common and persuasive and argumentative. All right, Lamont? You understand, Lamont?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me write something here, just remember, so everybody remember. If you have any opinion for a writing, for essay, especially for persuasive purpose, for argumentative, don't use I think. I think it's down, and it could be it could be even sometime making people feel I don't want to read more, right? So let's just write something here. Is almost a taboo today in the writing profession. All right, even if you are not professional, but just follow the professional's idea and the suggestion, right? So writing almost a taboo today in the writing, profession. The reason is it doesn't give any new information and let the reader feel they are can seriously. Or I know you are not meaning that, but that give people a sense of, oh, I think, or I probably blah blah blah. So that's making people feel you didn't do research or didn't have a better wording. So I know you are seriously taking this. Just make sure don't use it. All right, Lemon?
Okay.
Yeah, so remember this is something very important. It is rather jejune, of course, that's right, and childish of her to do this, and her stories always end up being based on some hero rescuing a princess. Yeah, that's very interesting. The only thing I would say, the flow of thinking here is quite natural I suppose only you need to practice more writing exercises like this, a limited time writing like this, so your mind will gradually be exposed to some creative and fresh ideas, which you yourself probably didn't even think possible. You understand what I'm saying, Malamon?
Yeah.
Yeah, just in other words, in the class, we want you to write more. If, for example, I give you 5 minutes, submit whatever you have, even if it's not finished. And after class, of course, if you join our class formally, we have the weekly homework submitted on our forum and let our teacher and editor do the editing. All right. So when you do more and more exercise with the other people, just like you were a swimmer, like you are a professional dancer, when you practice more and more, some of the artistic creative ideas will come automatically, naturally. You don't know where they come from; they just come. Are you with me, Lamon?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now let's move on to the next writing. All right, so this is not just for Lamon herself, but just for everybody. All right, so you do more exercise after exercises. All right, you're gonna actually, you're gonna have more interesting writing in there. All right. And some students only write, one sentence, that's fine. We're going to see what you have. All right. Sometimes one sentence could be beautiful. It could be the unfinished genius, of work, but, you probably didn't know how to, move on. But that, so we want to take a look. Right. Next one by Jesse. Jesse only wrote, unfinished sentence, but let's take a look and one Jesse. You obviously you didn't finish, close to 5 sentences. What's the issue? You didn't have idea, or you're not familiar with the word. What caused you only finish, partially a sentence or bury a sentence? Jesse. Hello, Jesse. I want to make sure everybody you got listen, pay attention. All right, I want you to join the discussion. I want to join the discussion. All right. So anyway, since Jesse didn't join, so I'm gonna I would have to just talk, and probably everybody take notes if you think it's important for you. He made you join about how all teachers lazy. Well, we don't say he made you join. All right. So you can say, I don't know what exactly. Okay, let me ask you, Jesse. I still trying to make you talk. Jesse, are you there? Can you unmute yourself so we can have a little discussion? Writing is not just about you write. It's about discussion, brainstorming, interaction between you and the teacher and you and the classmates and peers and people who understand or who don't understand you. So Jesse, what do you mean here he made jejun about how a teacher? What do you want to say? Because I don't quite understand what you're meaning. Jesse?
Like I understand the words like he made joking, just like
he is joking about how the teacher is lazy. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, then we should say this. All right. The then jejun should not be made, here. Probably want to move and just move the words, move it to a different place, but delete it here, but put it in later. We can say he made jokes, right? That's the first saying. He made jokes about how all the teachers, how is that's are, because that's more than a teacher, right? So we should say how all the teachers are lazy and also jejun, right? That will, or you can say how they're lazy and extremely jejun. All right, let's make it even more critical, more ridiculous, all right, for their situation, the students. Let's just make it remove also are lazy and extremely jejun. All right, so that will make this sentence more up to what you mean. All right, you understand, Jesse?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, but remember, write more. Like I said, when you write more, especially when you time yourself, you would find, oh, I can write more within a limited time. And next time, not just more in number and quantity, but gradually with the teacher's comments, editing, recommendation with the peers, different writing ideas, so I can learn from. I would find my writing is getting more and more creative. I have more and more, not just increasing in quantity, but my quality is improving. All right, that's the thing. You need time, but you have to do it. Now, next one by Neil. I want to make sure, Neil's unmuted. All right, so now let's take a look. When I met Jean, I started a conversation with her about the history of China. Initially, I heard a lot of detailed information as she spoke. Actually, you don't have to say she spoke, because you are having a conversation with Jane. Obviously, the detail is what she spoke. It's not you read from a book, right, Neil? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Let's not waste our words on those not informative, not adding information words. All right, so that's something very important. And I expected her to be a Chinese history master. Yeah, that's very big expectation, but let's look on and see what happened. However, she was not capable of answering any subjective questions towards certain story. All right. Subjective can mean two things. One is about the subject. Another thing means something, make judgment or judgmental questions. So do you mean the first one, which is the subject topic, like with a specific question, specific knowledge, or are you talking about judgmental question? Which one do you mean here?
I'm talking about judgments.
All right. Okay, that's fine. It means, you have some judgmental, topic. So how you think, yeah, that could be a very interesting topic. However, she was not capable of answering any subjective questions for certain historical events. That's probably telling us she doesn't have enough knowledge, or she didn't really understand things, so that's why she cannot make judgment. All right. Yeah, that's also possible. This could be a good development of the logic. I can infer that her Chinese history class focused on teaching students general fact rather than encouraging their students to make comments and reflections about the fact. All right, so the core here is basically Jane was not having critical thinking, all right, about the topic. All right, so yeah, that could be very interesting discussion. All right, so almost, here, it's the saying we're very interested to read on about this thing. All right, so because you have something, creating a kind of confrontation with conflict. Any good writing tends to have confrontation with conflict. You are doing the right direction, right? Thus, her inability on answering the subjective question was resulted from her Chinese history teachers at Jejun Education Master. Yeah, that is also used correctly and meaning no problem. Only if you, of course, I cannot blame you here because the time is very limited. But if you have enough time, give some specific knowledge, for example, about which year China has its first emperor or the last emperor, that type of questions to show she was not having the true knowledge, so that she can make her own judgmental answer or her own judgment based on critical thinking. You understand, Neil? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, but good enough. I would say good enough. All right, so I cannot blame you because the time is very limited. But I still want to say here, right? If you have a little more time, all right, you can add a true a fact of Chinese history. All right, a fact of Chinese history or two, all right, to make the judgment, your judgment. I'm not saying that Jane's judgment, your judgment about her knowledge and her teacher's teaching, to make the judgment about the teacher, teachers, the teacher's teaching, the teacher's class or whatsoever. The teacher's class. So you can add a fact or Chinese history or two to make the judgment about teacher class more justifiable, because you have the fact, you have the true fact based on historical truth, right? That would make it even more powerful. You hear what I mean, Neil?
Yes.
Okay, good job also. So you see that you guys, if you didn't write or didn't finish, so probably you wanted to do more practice like this. Force yourself to think critically, force your mind to explode. Annabelle, do you have any reason you didn't write even the sentence? What happened? Hello, Annabelle? I'm sorry, I cannot wait for much longer. We have to move on. All right, so let's move on. But okay, Annabelle, do you have any question? Do you have an answer? I see you're unmuted. So did you hear me?
For some time I couldn't hear anything.
You couldn't think of anything, right?
No, like I couldn't hear anything for some time.
Oh, but did you see
So I
other
could
people
hear them.
writing? Did you see other people writing?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably you can follow that. But if you really cannot see anything, or cannot hear anything, raise your hand. All right, so, or write something in the chat so I can help you. All right, even if sometimes your headphone or something or computer speaker doesn't make sound, we can help you to understand what you're doing so we don't waste the time. All right, but anyway, ask me. All right, do ask me. Let's not waste time. Before we do another writing exercise, we want to move forward. We keep going with, Roy Peter Clark about his very famous, very useful, very helpful, very professional 55 tools for writing, and especially some of the things that would be very interesting. Last time we started with the Nation Writers, and we did some writing exercise. But today, let's move on. And we want to move from here, and we finish this little short chapter. Then after that, we're gonna have a writing exercise based on this. All right, now let's move to start reading. So, so Annabelle, I'm sorry, since you didn't hear anything, but now if you can hear me, can you read this page starting from I first gathered?
I first gathered these tools at the Poynter Institute, a school for journalists, but thanks to the internet, they have traveled around the world and back. They have found their ways into the hands of teachers, students, poets, fiction writers, magazine editors, students, freelancers, screenwriters, lawyers, doctors, writers, bloggers, and many other workers and professionals who traffic in words. To my surprise, online versions are being translated into several languages, including Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, Arabic, Japanese, and Indonesian, reminding me of that writing strategies can and do cross boundaries of language and culture. You will find in this toolbox new ways of thinking, along with many familiar pieces of advice, dusted off and reframed for a new century. But where do writing tools come from?
Good. So Annabelle, can you answer this question? So from here, we can see his class was being translated online into other different languages, including Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, even Russian, Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, which are very different language. And that still makes sense for other people who are in different language. So what does it tell you? If one language tell you something about writing skills, what happened? What can you learn from the translation about writing also? What's your understanding, Annabelle? Hello? Hello? Annabelle? So you think a translated writing class can also help other people in different language and different cultures?
You can talk to them.
They can talk to them, then do you think it works? If not completely working, can it work some part of it, like partially?
Like you can write.
Yeah, you can write. And obviously, let me ask you this. For example, we all know, do you know Leo Tolstoy, a famous Russian writer? Do you know him?
No.
No. And do you know the famous, let's say, French author, French poet and novelist? His name is Victor Hugo. Do you know Hugo? The famous movie, actually musical movie in America, that is The Miserables or The Miserable. Do you know that novel? Or actually it's a novel and also adapted to many different versions, movie, musical. Do you know that? The Miserable, that's a French, forgive my French, actually. In English, just The Miserable or The Miserable World. Do you know that?
No, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, so, but well, the reason I mentioned that, let me actually mention that, right? So the reason I mentioned Victor, his name is Victor Hugo. All right, this person not pronounced as Hugo, it's in French, is Hugo. All right, so Victor Hugo. All right, Hugo is a world-renowned, world famous, very important author, poet, and a novelist, right? And he's widely regarded one of the most important writers of whole human history and humankind. Even if his writing is in French, but today you go to any important university, even high school or some middle school class of English, the teacher here in the United States, many of the teachers are introducing his books, his poetry, and his writings are translated from French to English. It still can be appreciated. Same thing here. Writing knowledge skills can be shared even if translated to a different language. All right. Now let's move on to the next page. So I want some student to read the first two paragraphs. How about George? Can you read the first two paragraphs from?
Yep. From great books on writing, such as The Element of Study and On Writing Well, they took a lifetime together, and not just a mind. They looked the lifetimes of Dorothy Brand, Brandon Allen, Rodolph Fletch, George Orwell, William Strunk, and his students E.B. White, William Lancer, John Gardner, David Lott, Natalie Goldberg, Anne Lamto, and all generous essays who share their knowledge about how good writing is made. From the author whose works, more than 200 of them, are simple here. Using the method of close reading, I find a passage that intrigues me, but put on my X-ray glasses and put beneath the surface of the text to view the invisible machinery of language, syntax, rhetoric, and critical thinking that creates the effects I experience as a reader. I then forge that I see into a writing tool.
All right, thank you. All right, we have quite a, these two paragraphs are very informative, very rich, very wealthy, I would say, in terms of information. So many names are being given. Let's take a quick look here. So from great works on writing, such as the Elements of Style, it's also called, Strong and White. So let me ask, Lemon, have you ever heard the very famous writing guiding book for everybody from elementary school to university student to professor in professional writing? That short book is called The Elements of Style. Have you ever read this book? Did you ever see this book even?
No.
No? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, yeah. So I strongly suggest you to borrow a copy or even buy a copy. It's a very thin book, probably a few dollars in the bookstore. Yeah, so you can buy it in any major bookstore, Barnes and Noble, Amazon online. You can buy it anywhere or borrow it from a library. I still think it's worth it. It's almost like a dictionary. The writer's dictionary for everybody should have a copy of it. The book is also called Strong and White, right? The reason is this book was written by two authors. One is William Strong, a very famous, author and teaching professor of English writing, and his student E.B. White. All right. So that's why this book is called Strong and White. If you hear that name, or if you know that name, that means you're familiar with this. All right. So, but remember Strong and White. Next time you go to the library and ask a librarian and say, I want to have the book of light, Strong and White. If that guy doesn't know what you're talking about, you can say, you don't deserve working here because you don't know even, this very basic fundamental writing tool of the Elements of Style. All right. The next one is on writing well. Actually, this book is written by one of the listed names here. We have put it here, so many names. Which is the name? Can you give it a guess, or if you ever know? Neil, which author here, all the listed authors, one of the authors wrote on writing well? Who was that author? Is that George Orwell? Is that Flash? Is that, Ulant, Brand?
I know. Well,
you don't know? Okay, who want to give?
I'm not sure, but I know that George Orwell wrote.
Yeah, George Orwell wrote.
1984.
Yeah, 1984, an Animal Farm, right? Animal Farm. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Very good. At least you know George Orwell. Obviously, that's very important. Also, everybody should know about him. But who wrote this on writing well? Let me ask some of you. Annabelle, do you have any impression or memory, even if very slim, very vague? Who wrote on writing well? Very famous.
Wait,
Also,
what again?
on writing well, this book. On writing well, this book. Who wrote this book? His name is listed here. One of those names. Can you give it a guess? I give you actually 3 times. Do you want to give it a try? Oh, you know what? Okay. It's William Zinsser. All right. Ever heard that name, William Zinsser? No? Yes or no?
Uh,
Looks like a no, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so it's okay because you know William Caesar, even if he's famous, but I know in today's elementary to middle school or even high school education in the United States, right? The lacking of strong and stylish writing and writing culture education is really a big problem. And so that's why it's worth your time to learn with Dr. Zhou Academy, to learn something and learn from this famous writer so you become outstanding writer among your peers, right? Actually, today many people say, oh, we have the AI, so people will gradually be replaced by AI. Trust me, you will not be replaced by AI, right? Because AI, but rather AI will help you. All right. Let's see if anybody wrote anything in the chat. William Zinsser is actually a famous professor from Yale University, English writing. All right. He taught quite a few years in Yale University, one of the Ivy League schools, one of the most famous, world famous universities, probably one of the dream schools you guys want to go. And also, he worked for the famous media like New York Times, New Yorker, and some other publishing media. He wrote about sports, culture, lifestyle, international traveling, and many other topics that his own writing well is almost a Bible for every professional or non-professional, a dreamful writer, right? So remember the elements of style and all writing wells are your left hand or right hand books. Right? You should left hand hold the element of style and right hand on writing style and hold it for years and years to come. Because you know what? Many professors, including the professor in Yale, Harvard, all right, Penn, all right, Stanford, Berkeley, or UCLA, or, and many other world-renowned universities, if they ever are making a living using writing or related to writing, they would pick this book for the lifelong journey because they're going to review it again and again. So that's why buy these two books, or at least borrow a copy and read it a lot of times. All right. Now, next paragraph. From the authors whose works, more than 200 of them are sampled here. Of course, that's just something in that book. But if you don't read the whole book, don't worry about those 200 of them. Using a method of close reading, I find a passage that intrigued me. Put on my X-ray glasses and peer beneath the surface of text to view the invisible machine with language, syntax, rhetoric, and critical thinking that creates effects. A lot of information here. If you have time, read after class. Now, I want another student to read the next two paragraphs, and that is Lemon. Can you read the next two paragraphs? If you have a question, ask me. Hello, Lemon. Can you? Yeah, go ahead.
Is it the paragraph from like
from here? Yeah.
Okay. From productive conversations with professional writers and editors, I once learned that only 3 behaviors set literate people apart. The first 2 are obvious, reading and writing, but the third surprised me, talking about how reading and writing work. Many of the tools came from great talk and the construction of stories and the distillation of meaning. Finally, from America's great writing teachers. They have labored for decades to demystify the writing process for students, to describe writing as a craft, a set of rational steps, a box full of tools, habits, and strategies.
Thank you for reading, but don't mute yourself yet because I have a question for you, Lemon. Here, first, for productive conversation with professional writers and editors, right? That's something obviously very important. And so let's read on. I have a question, after this. I once, I learned that only 3 behaviors set literary people apart. In other words, 3 things can make those people who are reading set them apart. Some of them better, some great, some not. All right, let's take a look at those 3 things. The first 2 are obvious: reading and writing. Obviously, you know that. But the third surprised me, talking about how writing and reading work. That's something we can discuss a little later. Many of the tools came from great talk about the construction of stories and distillation of meaning. So here I have a question for you. Let's talk about what does it mean by construction of stories and what does it mean by distillation of meaning? First, what is a construction story? Tell me how you understand this. Lemon. Yeah, I'll let Neil talk, but let's ask Lemon first. Go ahead, Lemon. What is the construction of stories?
Maybe like the authors that like how they write the stories or something.
Yeah, you have to know how they write it, the way they do it, how they prepare, how they collect the data, how they write the draft, how they write the outline, right, Lemon?
Yeah.
Yeah, and next word, what is distillation? If you first see this word, what do you think? What industry do you think if you first see the distillation?
Like science related?
Science related. For example, about alcohol, right? Chemistry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like alcohol, you know, because the alcohol like vodka, like whiskey, they're all related to distillation, right? But what does distillation in writing mean here, Lemon? Distillation is basically you use a very high temperature to make the alcohol evaporate and so make it purified. But for writing, what does that mean, Lemon?
Like purifying your writing, maybe like making it better or something.
Yeah, very good understanding. Right? Just like the evaporating the very coarse alcohol with lack of mixed low quality stuff. You make it purified with high quality, high temperature, so make it better. Great. Now let's actually invite Neil, because I'm sorry, Neil, I have to first let one student finish. But now, Neil, you have anything else? You just share it with us. Go ahead.
So how can an author construct a story?
How can the author construct a story? So let me ask you this: how do you construct your story normally if you are given an assignment or homework?
Oh, what type of stories do
Let's
you mean?
say a story about time traveling.
Well, since I had never been in a time travel, I'll begin like well, first describing I mean making up a character.
Yeah, making up a character. That's very good. Very good character. That's very important. What else can you think of?
I think the settings.
Setting. Very good. Setting. And other than the setting and character, what do you have other thing can you think?
Like the plots.
Plot, very good. All right, so yeah, that's good enough. All right, so these are things you all need to think about before you have a good construction story. Very good. All right, but to save some time, we have more discussion while we're doing the writing and discussion and editing. All right, so now let's do actually I have one question before we actually do another exercise. Finally, from America's great writing teachers, they have labored for decades to demystify the writing process for students. What does demystify mean? Jesse, can you explain your understanding? What is to demystify the writing process?
I'm not really know.
So yeah, let me ask you one word. Mystic. Do you know this word, mystic? What does that mean?
Like the mistake, like do something wrong.
It's not wrong, but it's mistake. It's not mistake. Mistake means it's something very strange, something you don't expect that could happen, something abnormal, something unusual. For example, you see some magician, they have 3 cards in their finger, but within a split second, they're gone. Then next second, they're in their left hand. That's called mystic. You understand, Jesse?
Yes.
Yes, like a magician, that's called mystic. All right, so demystify means to make the mystic or something strange explained clearly so people understand they're not strange. They just have some procedure, just like when you explain the magician's work, you know, they have some step-by-step working so everybody can learn. You understand that?
Yes.
Yeah, same thing for writing. All right, even for writers like William Zinsser, like Hugo, like I said just now about and also the famous Russian writer Tolstoy, or the famous writer of War and Peace, very famous, Anna Karenina, right? Very famous writer. If they wrote the war-renowned books like War and Peace and The Miserables by Victor Hugo, they are still having certain ways that can write. It's not something not a human can do. They can't be done by humans. So that's why the good teacher will make writing step by step, explain and describe, making it like a craft. Craft is something we can learn. Like you can learn how to do the painting. You can learn how to use the computer and set up rational step. In the other words, it's not mystic. It's not something supernatural, but it's something we can use our reasoning and rational step to do it. And also box of tools, habits, and strategies. All of these things we can learn. In other words, we can learn to write. All right, so that's pretty much what the book is about, and also that's what our class is telling you. Now let's do an exercise. All right, so a little exercise. I think it's better to put it here because it's actually the time for you to start doing the exercise, because originally I thought we probably can put it earlier, but later, but I think it's time for you to start writing that. And yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's do the exercise. Check your writing toolbox. No matter if you don't understand what the toolbox is, basically whatever you can use in your writing. Check your writing toolbox and tell us what tool you have. For example, you use figure of speech, you use big words, you use small words, you use funny words, use a lot of your jokes. All those are your tools, all right? How often you use them, what result they really get. Use at least a real life example experience to do this writing, right? One more time. Tell us what you have. For example, I like to use stories. Example, I like to use fairy tales. I like to use movie stories. I like to use my real life examples. I like to use figure of speech. I like to use similes. I like to use metaphors. I like to use hyperbole whatsoever. All right, I want you to tell us what kind of tool you have, what kind of tool you most likely use, how often you use them, what the result they normally get, and use your real life example in your school, in your community, your neighborhood, or in a competition, whatever you experienced. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. If you have any question, all right, let me know. All right, raise your hand. All right, we can do it now. Let's do it faster. We will at 10 minutes. We will stop it. Then we're going to do discussion. All right. Yeah. What's your question, Annabelle? Is that Annabelle who rose her hand? Oh, Neil. Okay, go ahead, Neil. What's your question?
So you mean the writing also the toolbox involves like things that can be used when you're writing, right?
Yeah, like anything you normally use. For example, okay, let me ask you this. When you write a story or write an essay, do you use figure of speech? Do you use like a literary device? Do you use a lot of borrowed story or movie example or characters or movie star, singing star to help you? Do you use other people's anecdotes? Are those things you use?
Okay, I see.
You see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So yeah, anything you can use, it can be your tool, because for different people, they can use different tools, right? So for example, let's say some engineer like to use Microsoft, Windows to be their tools. Some other use MacBook, Apple. Some other use more professional type of computing machine, right? So that's their different tools. they all can work very well, but depending on your habit, how you like it, that's what it is. 10 minutes. Time to submit. Yes. Some students say you don't get assignments. Basically, for example, just now we read about writing tools. And for example, you can say, let me actually give you some example. What are writing tools? Actually, we already explained, but some of you may not pay attention to hear about what we have in here. Some of the writing tools include figure of speech, like simile, right? Metaphor, right? And hyperbole, etc. Right? So, or you can use real life stories or star or like movie star anecdotes. Right. All these are different writing tools in your writing box. Writing toolbox, we would say. All right, so I want everybody to hurry up and try to finish your writing within the next 2 minutes. All right, so we have some meaningful discussion at least. For example, you like to use story. She like to use figure of speech. The other student like to often use some famous people's quote said by some famous, VIP, some sports star, movie star, singing star, or you want to use the example of some successful story, successful entrepreneur or businessman, or probably political leader, right? Or a military hero. So you can borrow their story and make your writing more interesting, more attractive. These are all the tools. Let me ask some of you, see how much you have done. Lamont, did you write something like a couple of sentences, or how many sentences you have written up to now?
I wrote like 3 sentences.
Okay, yeah, keep writing. We're gonna give you 2 or 3 more minutes. Other people, please do it. I'm gonna give you guys 3 more minutes. Then we're gonna stop and we're gonna submit everybody. We're gonna see at least how much you can write within limited time, and then we need to do more exercise at home and in the class. All right. 3 sentences, 1 sentences, or just no sentence, just 1 word, a few words. Please submit now, everybody, so we can have a meaningful discussion whatsoever. All right. Let me ask you to submit whatsoever you have. Lemon, you just a couple of minutes ago, I asked you, said 3 sentences. Can you submit 3 sentences at least, or more, maybe? I saw Neil roll something great. I'm glad, Neil finished something, and Lemon also. Let's take a quick look, and other people start submitting. All right, do not waste our time, and let's take a quick look here. All right, so let's just first one by Neil. All right, so whenever I write, I always start by sketching my outline. All right, that's a very straightforward. All right, very clear and straightforward. All right, start. All right. So that's a good choice and good start, because you don't want to drag it out. All right. You don't want to let people feel, oh, I don't know anything, or I'm not sure what I want. That would be a disaster for your writing. Right? When the outline is complete, I will add plots and build my character to fit in the story. Very good also. Next, I design a setting for the story and make judgment on the characters. After these requirements are achieved, I start to write. All right, so actually, don't say that's a requirement. After this job, you can say that's probably not the requirements. These are just job. Other people may not do this thing. They can still do a good job. All right, so that's why it's not a requirement, but there's the job. Our job can be different. You understand, Neil?
Yes.
All right, so let's just make it red. Are achieved or finished. I start to write. Of course, within my writing, I focus on making my passage attractive. For example, using metaphors, similes, and vivid verb. Very good. All right, so I like these examples. These are the things I know you did something before, at least. All right, so great examples of tools. Sounding real. All right, anything sounding unreal, it's a big problem. If you sound real, you are winning half. All right, at least you are getting half of it. All right, so I often add appropriate quotes to make my writing more authentic. The conclusion usually ends with a deep thought and memorable sentence. Very good, beautiful. Even if you can make it better, but for within a little bit of time, it's very good already. Let's take a look at the next one by Lemon. Right. Let's make it smaller. Actually, let's make Neil's writing smaller so we can discuss it easier with that writing. Let's make Lemon's writing bigger. When I write essays, I sometimes use real life examples, famous quote as a hook to catch the reader's attention. Very good. I'm glad to use the hook. It is great to see the magic word of hook. Writing a lot of times about how you can hook the reader so they will read on and on. They will turn the page. All right. And let me ask, Lemon, where did you learn the word hook? Lemon.
Writing in school.
Yeah, very good. It's very good. Very important tools. Sometimes I also use anecdotes that a friend have told me about. Good. If I'm writing a persuasive essay, I would use quotes from reports or articles gathered online as evidence to support my ideas. If we are doing creative writing, figurative language could be used to add a descriptive imagery to the story. All right. So Lemon, the only thing you want to add one of the specific example in a real writing, a topic and how you did. That would make it perfect. All right, Lemon?
Okay.
All right, that's it for today's class. We're over time. Other students writing, we're going to just copy it here. And then we're going to probably discuss next time. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. and we'll see you in a week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.